Love it. Debbie, great to meet you. Thank you
You
so much for
too.
taking a minute out today.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You bet. So let's begin our journey with this. 6 years ago, this pandemic changed so much about the way we live. How did you get through that era, and how has it affected the way that you approach your work, podcasting and coaching, everything you do today?
Right. 25 years ago, I met a woman and she became my spiritual teacher for like 23 years. And then she died in 2021 of cancer. So the pandemic is a very interesting thing for me to talk about because I'm a life coach, which is really what I did, for that time. And she taught me everything that I needed to know. And she was very, very good. She was an entrepreneur. She had several businesses and everything. So she was really, really, educated woman. So, what happened was during the pandemic and, COVID, I was in New York. I'm not in New York now, but I was in New York and it was very bad there. Um, Companies were going out of business and they were filing bankruptcy and all these things. And they literally blamed COVID, the pandemic. That's the reason why my company went out of business because I have no, I have no customers. I can't function, right, because of COVID. So my question is this. There are very big companies. Think of a tech company, huge tech company. Did they go out of business because of COVID? Okay. So, right. So some did and some didn't. Now, that doesn't have anything to do with the pandemic or, something in my relationship or I got a divorce or, whatever it is that's going on with me, any outside force, right? Whether my company is filing bankruptcy or, their employees are leaving. I mean, there's so many different examples of this. Anything that happens negative in the company has to do with mainly it starts with the business owner and the executive. And that trickles down right to the employees all the way down, maybe even to the janitor, right? And the thing that I focus on mainly, I mean, there's a lot of things that I do, but mainly is that when somebody is negative, they see the world a completely different way.
Mhm.
And when they work, they take that home, and vice versa, right? So now everybody around them is negative, whether it's, family, right? Or their employees, or their peers, right? Anybody, that they come in contact with, basically, right? Is negative because they're feeding that negativity. They're literally spewing it out in order for them to get it back because they have to get it back. It's kind of like an addiction, kind of, right?
Yeah.
So that's the reason why, basically is why some companies, went out of business, filed bankruptcy, whatever, they had to downsize. That's the reason why, is because of the negativity and because they thought that that was going to bring them down. Okay.
Yeah.
But again, not all companies did that. Why is that? Because the executives and business owners of those companies knew that that wasn't going to affect them, right? That wasn't going to be, the doomsday, you know, of their company. And they knew that and they took precautionary measures, okay? And they knew that they had to not let that affect them. And there's all different ways that you can do this. I mean, there's tons of ways. So when I saw that, I said, I want to help these business owners and managers and executives because what they're doing is completely wrong. I mean, it's totally like, it's not the way a business should be run. And that's really the bottom line. So that was what I did. So now that I'm helping them, like I say, I also do life coaching. I have two podcasts. I have Behavioral Profit, which is about, business and different things. And I have like 40 episodes, I think, on that or something, 35 episodes or something. And then I started another one, which is life coach for anybody, which is called the Internal Shift Show. And that's basically what it is. And I only have like 4 or 5 episodes on that. I started that like 2 weeks ago,
Yeah,
you know,
sure, sure.
so,
So,
so, go ahead.
no, 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 you're good. You're good.
So, that was the reason why I did that podcast was because I don't want to say that, I'm all these different things, right? Because everybody's saying, you should be specific, about what you want to do and everything, about what kind of market you're targeting, different things like that. But the thing with that is that I always have just a disagreement with is that anything that anybody does, it doesn't matter what career it is, what industry, none of that matters because that's all outside forces. So I help anybody pretty much the same exact way, right? So everything is tailor made to that individual. So if somebody comes to me, we have a call, we have one or two strategy calls, whatever it is, right? And then, they fill out something, whatever. And then based on that, I give them a plan, a big outline of what they want to accomplish. So I ask them, what's the point? Why are you coming to me? Different things like that. And then I make the outline based on that and I give it to them. And that's fine. I mean, they're not going to do anything with it,
Yeah, yeah,
They could, look something up on YouTube or whatever and that'll fix it. But this is going to be a permanent solution for them. That's what I want. I don't want to, them to keep coming back to me. I'm not like somebody that, is going to make money off of them. I love everybody and I want to see everybody, but that's not the point of what I do because they're supposed to be taking what they learned from me and from, other people and everything, positive things. And now they're going to take that into their company and they're going to teach every single person in that company, all the way down to the janitor, what they learned and what they practiced from all of these coaching sessions that we did. And you know what that's going to do? You want to talk about increased sales and profits?
yeah,
That's going to bring them so over the top. People in the other industry, all the business and executive owners in their industry, they're going to be like, wow, how did you do this? How are you making so much money? How is your volume so high? Right. So they're really going to be able to separate them. And I know this can work and I know exactly how to do it. I've done it, been doing this for a very long time, and this is not anything that I question. There's not, it's not something that I just dreamed up yesterday. I know exactly what to do. Somebody else might be shocked, but I'd be like, that's the way that it should be. I wouldn't think that it would be anything, if they didn't have any results, then I'd be worried,
yeah.
you know. But that's not going to be the case.
So let's find out how we got here. What did you want to be when you were a kid? What was your dream job?
My dream job was to help people, and I had certain gifts that I knew that when I was small, not like a real small child, but maybe like in high school or whatever. And they were gifts that like a sixth sense kind of thing. Okay. And, I was able to help people with that knowledge that I felt that was very strong inside of me. And that's why when I met Ruthie, which was my spiritual teacher, she really helped me bring this out. And she explained to me that I could now go and, help people on my own. Right. And that was really everything that I wanted to do because I really didn't think about myself, because I knew that if I help people and I did a career where I was changing people's lives, and influencing people, right? I would benefit from that. And that's not why I do it, but that's exactly how it works. Because if I give them my energy, teaching, coaching, whatever it is, right? And then, positive, whatever, however I'm doing it, now they receive that right? And that's exactly what they need. And then they go bring it to somebody else. And then that person bring it's the same thing with negativity. How did everybody become so negative?
Yeah.
Well, that's from everybody in the world,
Hmm.
everywhere we go, shopping, home, work, everywhere. The neighbors, that's how we got that way. So we could change it to becoming a positive. And like I said, there's so many different ways that I do this with the coaching. Now, I didn't know, when I was younger about, what coaching was and, all these different things. I had no idea what this was, this is just a term. We used a lot of different terms when I work with Ruthie, right? She used therapist because she was a therapist. I don't do that and I can't do that and I wouldn't want to anyway, because I don't have those degrees, right? So, she just said teaching, spiritual teaching, she had a few different things. She didn't use coaching, but that's exactly what she was doing, but I just think it became popular. I don't know if it was popular. I really don't know, but now I know that it's a very, very, very popular thing.
Yeah.
It's very, a lot of people are seeking out coaches, different things because the traditional ways to help people, like therapy and medicine and all these different things. I'm not, a therapist. I'm talking about. I'm not going to say anything bad about any of these things because if somebody is doing it and it's working fine for them, then that's fine, right? But I offer something that's alternative than that. I don't offer that, and these are for people that want to change. And also, maybe they've tried those things, and it hasn't worked for them. Those are the people I'm interested in seeing. I don't want people who are happy, with the therapist and the medicine, and whatever else they're doing, right? They wouldn't come to me anyway, but it would be very difficult for me to help them, let's put it that way, right? Because something I do, what I do, everything I do is just completely different than that. So it kind of put it all together, and that's just the name that I gave myself, a coach. And then I did, executive behavioral coach because I was working with the executives and business owners and whoever else needed help, right? And now that I did the internal shift show, I figured I could help anybody, which is what I've been doing anyway, for the past 25 years or whatever. And so that's not new to me either, So, you know, it's just going to work out the way that it works out. I'm the type of person that makes a whole bunch of mishmash and it just comes together. I've
Yeah.
been that way my whole life,
Yeah.
and I don't know how it's going to work out. I don't necessarily know. I have an idea. I have goals. I have a plan, all these different things, right? But if it doesn't work out exactly that way, then it's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that, but it'll work out the way that it's supposed to, but I have to put the effort in. I have to put the footwork in. I can't say like I do social media, websites, advertising, all these different things. And I can't sit home and watch TV and say, I'm going to be a coach, I'm going to help people and do nothing.
Yeah.
I'm on the podcast. I have my own. I'm guest on podcasts. I have a lot of guest speaking, engagements that I do on podcasts. So I'm trying to get the word out, you know, about myself, right? Because I'm like an unknown person, basically, right? And there are popular coaches out there, and everybody wants to go with them and all this stuff. But what I do is not what they do. What I do is completely different. You will find me somebody, anybody, a coach or anybody that does what I do, and I will be very, very, very surprised. I challenge anybody to find that. Well, they don't know what I do, but I mean, they do when they come to me.
Yeah.
But there cannot be. I mean, maybe somebody similar, right? But for them to be exactly like me, exactly what I do, and stuff on the back end and everything, I would be very, very, very surprised if there's anybody that's just like me. And they follow each other. You know what I mean? Because they have classes, and they have school and they have all these, strategy things and all these different things that they do. And, but what I do is something completely different. And that's my own thing. I learned from, my spiritual teacher, but it's something that I put together based on my my mind, my vision, from stuff I learned and I just this is just how I put it together. I know
So,
it's a lot.
no, 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 it's all good. No, let me ask you this. If you had a dream tonight and ran into a young 18-year-old version of you, and you had a big coffee table book and it was your life that you've lived, everything that you've done up to this point, you gave it to them, would they believe that you've lived this life?
I don't know about that. I'm not sure. I mean, maybe some of it, but most of it probably not. I'm not going to say they do or they didn't, but I'd probably be pretty surprised, if they did, because some stuff is a little bit, I have other stuff. I've had bottoms with depression and different things. And, if I were to really, my friends and my clients, they want me to write a book because they know a lot of stuff about my life and everything, and they're not really clients, but they're my friends and stuff, and they thought that I should write a book, and I would like to, but I really don't have the time,
Yeah,
because a lot of stuff has happened to me. Like I said, I had bottoms, and all these different things, and there's a lot of things that and those things I can use to help people. So I kind of find it a little hard to believe that somebody would really think. I just don't think my life is very common. It's not like an ordinary life. That's
yeah,
just me.
yeah,
I don't think somebody would really think that it would be me. Maybe they would think, but it's a lot. It's
yeah,
just a lot.
yeah. So let me ask you this. When you look back on your life, everything that you've done, accomplished, and evolved to, what are you the proudest of?
What I'm doing now,
Yeah,
because this is something that I've put together my whole entire life. And I had no idea, like I said, that it was going to come out this way.
yeah,
And I didn't know that then, but, just went through life. One event happened that triggered something else. I met somebody, all these different events and different things that happened in my life, and they all just came together. Literally, they came together like a package, like a complete present. Like if I were to like wrap somebody a really nice present, and that's how it came together in the end. So, it really worked out for me, but it's just the way that it was supposed to work out,
yeah,
because I planned a lot of things, but not in this way.
yeah,
So this is really the way I'm living my life now. I mean, there's a lot of things that I would like, I don't stop making goals or anything like that, but whatever I do, I know that it's going to come out in some way. It might not come out the way that I plan it, or I might not meet a goal, the way that I make it or think of it, but it will come together in some way, shape, or form. And the end result of that will always be positive. Why? Because I'm a positive person and that's the way that I think, right? And I have to think that way. I have to practice that in order for me to teach it, because I can't teach something that I don't have, that I don't practice. It's impossible. I can't do that. Okay.
yeah.
So
I get it. So let me dig a little bit further here. Everyone has a perception of you. Family, friends, clients, everyone that knows you, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I think that I'm a very successful person. And I think in 100 ways. And I think that I could be a lot more successful than what I am now. And I'm just basically waiting for that to happen because, like I said, that little gift that I had, sixth sense and, spiritual, right? And all these different things, right? Those things are going to benefit me. Okay. And that's going to help me make everything come together. And this is not something that I think is going to happen. I know this is going to happen. And if I know something, it will happen. And what does that mean? I could be more successful now. I will be. What does that mean? I could give you 100 different, I could become famous and, be on TV and talk shows and, with what I do. There's a lot of things that I could do. It's not something that's out of reach. It's not something that is impossible. Now, like I said, what that thing is or things, I could just make my career, I mean, make my business, more than it is, grow it, different things like that. So whatever is going to work out, however it's going to work out is the way that it's supposed to work out. But I know that it's not going to be at the spot that I am now. It's going to be different. And that's why I'm trying, really trying to do all these different things to try to get myself as much exposure as I can, right? To build my business. But that's not what it's about.
Yeah.
That's not what it's about. That's not the first thing. The first thing is helping people with the things that I've learned, right? That I know is going to work. That's what it is. But I get something from that. But that's not why I do it. Does that make sense?
Yep. Totally
I
makes
know
sense.
it's a little strange. I
No,
know.
no, no. It's all good. I get it. So let me ask you this. Who's the ideal potential client? Anyone listening that wants to reach out, ask questions, hire you, who should be doing this next?
The ideal potential client is somebody that's having a bottom, somebody that filed bankruptcy, somebody that's going out of business, somebody that they're not making their company is going down the tubes and they don't have money to put food on the table for their family and put gas in the car to get to work. I mean, that's the ideal client, because they're going to be the most workable and they will do anything because they are literally in a state of desperation. Now, do I want to see that? No. Can I help other clients that are not like that, that just have one little problem here and there? Yes, I can, so there's all different situations, but people fight themselves and they fight their own brain. So they can easily talk themselves out of anything. But somebody who is at a bottom, literally, and has nothing to lose, okay, there's a much less chance of them talking themselves out of anything, right? Because they're at a bottom, because, so, so they have nothing to lose. So what's going to happen? They're just going to do something, because what they're doing obviously is not working, right? Because if it was, they wouldn't be like that. But I don't want to see anybody like that. I would rather people come to me before that happens, And I've tried to tell people this, and they were like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And then they come and then they leave, and then they don't get everything they're supposed to, right? And then 2 years later, their business is down the tubes. And this is what's happening because it's a process and there's a way that you can do this every day. This is something where you're changing everything, your behavior, everything you do at work, right? And you're doing that, the business owner or the executive or whoever it is doing that every single day. And when they do that, it's even family too, because I'm a life coach also, like I said. And because getting rid of negativity is with anything. And when they do that, then their life changes and everybody changes around them. But they know that they are a completely different person,
Yeah.
right? And that's the most important thing. And then what happens then? Oh, then everything's fine. When everything was negative and they couldn't stand life and all they did was point the finger, and they fought with their spouse and their kids and, all these different things, then everything wasn't so good. But then all of a sudden, when they're positive, all of a sudden now everything is fine. No, that's not how it works.
Yeah.
Everything was the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
everything was the same and everything will be the same, but my perception is completely different. And the
Yeah.
way that I think and act is completely different. And that is what the idea is to this. This is not anything new. You know, all the big tech companies, they have coaches, you know, they do this, right? They help their employees change, you know, work on stuff about themselves and, you know, it's this is not uncommon. You
Sure.
know, this is, you know, all big companies do this, every single one. That's why they're so successful.
Yeah. Yeah. I will make sure to put your link in the show notes, have everybody reach out. And this has been wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you for what you're doing, for your work, for opening up a little bit about it. Best of luck. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate you having me on the show.
Yeah, you bet.